Tonight, Ray opposes intelligent thinking.
Don't try and figure things out.
Steve has a revelation.
Wait, that means I'm going to heaven and Ray's going to hell.
Yes. And I compare rocks to coconuts. The rock is harder than the coconut.
Why hello my fellow apes, I hope you're well. Welcome to the second episode of LowFruit. This is going to be a hell of a fun series for me and everyone watching, but not for Ruis.
It's mostly painful.
Yeah, well, see, what we've got today is an absolute treat. You may have heard of him, Ray Comfort. He recently released a video titled, "Do This and Your Faith Will Crumble." And we listened to the first minute and a half.
And I wish I could go back to a time when I hadn't heard of Ray Comfort.
Wait till I show you the banana antics.
I've never seen a man put out so many words yet say so little.
Yes.
Well, it's astonishing.
if we get a reflection, even a pale reflection of how he reacted to the first minute, then we are in for a treat. This is a hell of a video. It's going to require a lot of pausing, which we'll explain why shortly. Yeah. But listen, this is Ruis. If you don't know who he is,
I was here last time.
Same as everyone else, right?
Icon at the bottom somewhere.
Icon at the bottom, he's here. I give the best introductions.
Yeah, we've got it nailed.
I believe one of the greatest hindrances of people coming to Christ is a misunderstanding of believing in God and having faith in God. They think they're synonymous when they're not.
So it might seem a little bit strange to stop less than 10 seconds into his video, but I think it's quite important that we do, because he started here with saying belief and faith are not synonymous. And I actually largely agree with that. They're not. Yes,
I also agree. The thing is that it depends on who you're talking to. There's many different ways to define belief. There's many different ways to define faith. Theists are pretty notorious for conflating and equivocating on these terms. It's also the first thing that he says. And what we got from the first minute is that he's saying, look, there is a difference between belief and faith. And like what he's saying pivots on this.
Yeah.
And so... okay, fair enough. Tell us what you think, Ray, because we'll meet you where you are.
Yeah, we don't actually know what you're going to define it as just yet, but when someone says belief and faith, I have definitions in my head that I'm expecting to hear. Belief simply being convinced of a proposition, and faith being that where you're convinced, usually religiously, without any sort of proof or evidence required to believe it.
Yeah, it's like if you have enough evidence to not need any faith, well, it's just a belief.
Yes.
Whereas if you don't have enough evidence, then you would cash it out as faith.
Yeah.
I broadly would agree with that.
Yeah, but let's see how he's going to define it, shall we?
Yeah. I believe in God for the same reason I believe in gravity.
Here we go.
Hang on.
Yes, do it. This is worth doing. He's full on out the room. Okay, that is a good thing.
We're going to need these.
Thank God. We're not sponsored by this, by the way.
But, I do not endorse alcoholism, but...
No. Alcohol is a very bad idea. Seriously, if you're watching this video, the only way that my viewer retention is going to be high on this video is if people join us in this ritual.
I can't see, hear, touch, taste, or smell gravity, but I believe in it because I can see its effects. And I can't see, hear, touch, taste, or smell God, but I believe in his existence intellectually because I can see the effects of God.
See, I can see the effects of gravity, right? And we have theories that explain it. I don't see the effects of God. I don't see a God at all. I mean, Ray does, and fair enough, I can see what he's doing here, trying to compare the two. He's basically explaining that he has intellectual reason to believe in God in the same reason, for the same reasons that he has intellectual reason to believe in gravity. But there's just so much to unpack here, like gravity and God.
Well, we're going super basic. When you're making an analogy, you have to find something that has some form of similarities between them, which I'd already argue he's failed.
Yes.
We have a description of gravity, what it is and what it does.
Yep.
We don't really have quite such a tight thing for God. Depending on who you ask, you're going to get very, very different things.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Like it completely depends on who you talk to. I mean, if we was to be, the most popular one you'll get is all powerful and all loving.
Yeah.
So what does that predict?
Well, I don't know. I'd certainly expect there to not be any evil.
Yes, exactly. You would expect no evil. Why? Because he's all powerful, so he can do anything he wants, and he's all loving.
So he's going to get rid of the evil.
So where does the evil come into this? Now, you've got all these theodicies to try and explain it. There's a lot of them, which tends to explain why they're not very effective.
But God is capable of more than that. God is apparently capable of everything.
Yeah.
So what else can we predict and test from that? We've got to be able to predict and test everything to say we see the effects of God.
Yeah.
Whereas with gravity, well, we've got it's probably two different ways people were doing it, depending on if it's just in relation to Earth. Okay, so it would be an attractive force that pulls objects downwards towards the center of mass of the Earth.
Yep.
And you can test that quite simply by, I don't know, dropping this memory card. There we go, test it. I could also repeat that test over and over and get similar results. I can do it with other objects and get similar results. What can we predict and test as the effect of God being everything? You can't.
It's very difficult. I mean, yeah, I've heard this analogy thrown about a lot. If you're watching, you've probably heard this one thrown about a lot. But yeah, the main thing I'm getting from this, considering that he opened by saying that there's a difference between belief and faith, is that he's saying that gravity falls into the belief category.
For evidential reasons.
Yes, for evidential intellectual reasons, and that's why he believes in God. Evidential intellectual reasons.
Yeah, I think that's what he's trying to say.
Yep.
Just not done it very well.
All of creation screams that there's a creator. You can see the genius of God's creative hand through creation.
Play that again.
Play that again.
But slower.
All of creation screams that there's a creator. You can see the genius of God's creative hand through creation.
Right, let's just cut the fluff words out of that. All of creation screams a creator. You can see the creator through creation.
He's not said anything.
It's a nothing statement, Ray. You're not saying anything there.
No, sorry.
You can do it.
No, what would be an equivalent of that? There's got to be an equivalent of that.
You can do it with anything. Let's start with something that we can prove is true. All of the oceans scream of water. You can see the water through the oceans.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, it doesn't say anything.
Right. Wait, you need lovely music in the background.
Yeah, let's see if we can do it for something that we don't have any evidence for existing. So give me the music.
Okay, all right, we're going to cue music, all right? Let's do this.
All of the footprints scream of Bigfoot. All of the...
No, go on, you can do this.
All of the foot... No, I'm going to have to stop until you stop laughing now because we've got a cut from the beginning. Right, you ready?
No, go. I'm going to laugh in the background. You can't do anything about it.
You might just have to zoom in on me then.
Yeah.
All of... I can't. All of the footprints screams of Bigfoot. You can see Bigfoot through the footprints.
It's such a dumb statement.
You got anything else?
Yeah, no. We're going to make you listen to that again. That's such a non-statement.
All of creation screams that there's a creator. You can see the genius of God's creative hand through creation. The Bible says the heavens declare the glory of God, and the earth shows his handiwork.
Look at the editing.
What is it? It's on the screen static, and then it zooms in, all in the space
of about half a second.
It's about 0.2 seconds. I'm going to make you watch it again.
Well, we're going to have to, because we're too busy laughing to actually hear his point.
Sorry. Okay. For science, for intellectual reasons, we're going to go back to where he starts his profound quote.
Right, okay.
All of creation screams that there's a creator. You can see the genius of God's creative hand through creation. The Bible says the heavens declare the glory of God, and the earth shows his handiwork.
He's going to keep talking,
yeah,
but we got to cut it. We'll explain. We've paused a lot so far, and it's because he's basically toric trotting. Okay, so toric trotting is something that I've named, but it's actually based on gish galloping.
Yeah.
Gish galloping occurs when someone drops as many half-truths and just nonsense and just claims
Well, it's not
on
even
the table.
necessarily nonsense. It's just claims that the other person may not have either made or heard of or have the evidence on hand to prove.
Yes, and it's like you can drop as many of these on the table for them to try and refute in a very small amount of time, knowing that they can't possibly address them all. And it's named after Dwayne Gish, which we'll actually play a video of him in a second to really hammer home what's going on here. But what you're seeing with Rambling Ray here is the same as what you see with basically anything from Frank Turek, and that is that they take the Gish-Gallop technique and instead of doing it against an opposition, what they do is they just preach with it. And it's just so many things being dropped.
And obviously, you've got if you're listening to him as a preacher, you have no time to actually process what he said.
Yeah.
Because he's already made another claim by the time you've heard the first thing that he said,
Precisely. And if you do actually want to slow him down and start picking it apart, someone's going to accuse you of not letting him finish his sentence. But the thing is that if you make a claim, that's where you can pause. It's not about making a sentence finish or a paragraph finish. It's when the claim has been made. And what Ray does is he drops the claim and then makes another claim and then makes another claim.
And the sentence hasn't ended yet.
Yeah, so you do have to pause.
Yeah.
So what we'll do, take a look at Gish Galloping.
Let's take a look at Gish.
We're going to take a good old look at Gish Galloping, and it will contextualize why we've got to pause so much. Like, Ray rambling is a very serious problem.
To this,
Would you say? Go ahead,
Bob.
Dwayne.
I have two comments here. Phil has stated his belief this is a marvelous universe, a tremendously complex universe. What he doesn't understand about the theory of evolution said that this has happened naturally, that we are here as a result of genetic mistakes. As Lauren Isley has said, man is here as a result of millions of DNA accidents. Yeah. That's what evolution is. It's not a divinely guided process. It is a process based on mutations, which are genetic accidents, almost all of which, and I believe all are bad, but certainly most of which are bad, creating all kinds of genetic diseases. And Phil believes that somehow God used such a process to create man when he could have created man instantaneously if he wanted to. Why would he use such a wasteful, inefficient method in his creation?
But do you see anything wasteful or inefficient about
that is contrary to the attributes
Phil?
of God.
Yeah, you see what's happening?
That will do,
so
yeah.
that'll definitely do. So we've got the universe is marvelous.
Okay.
What do you mean by marvelous?
Yep.
He says evolution claims how the universe occurred. It
Yep.
doesn't. He says that evolution is just genetic mistakes, but he's ignoring the natural selection part of it. Again, he then says DNA accident, ignoring the natural selection part of it. He says it's not a divinely guided process, but there's many theists out there that will say that it is.
Most Christians today accept evolution.
Then for a third time, he restates the genetic accident bit. All mutations are bad, and then he goes to all mutations cause genetic diseases. So in, less than 40 seconds, we've got 9 claims.
9 claims that are hard to unpack, and also the claims that he makes are like working on people's intuitions. It's like, look, I'll just pick one. Genetic mistakes. Evolution is not just genetic mistakes. I can't help myself. I want to react. What it is it's you've got replication of DNA failing.
Change over time.
Yeah, allele changes, right? And then natural selection is not random. It's the opposite of random, right?
Well,
but look, we're doing what he wants. We're doing what he wants. He wants
obviously.
us to go into...
Just real quick, you often find these people use mistake and error because of the negative connotations of that.
Don't name that, pal.
Whereas all it simply is a change.
Yes. That's it.
Error in replication isn't necessarily
whether or not
a
it's good
failure.
is determined. We are buying into Gish's
let's
gallop.
stop,
Right,
let's
listen.
stop.
Okay, look.
This is the problem.
Main point is he dropped 9 claims in 40 seconds. It's very, very hard to be able to respond to even one of them in equivalent time.
Yeah.
So this is a technique that's done by apologists, and it's done to bombard the opposition, and then when the opposition can't possibly respond, they go, see, didn't respond to this, this, and this. How can the atheist possibly not see God's... Sorry.
It's because I need an hour and a half to get through 9 seconds of your content.
Yeah, that's when they can drop one of the Ray Comfort lines, like, all of creation screams creation. You can see the creation... you can see the creator in the creation.
Brilliant.
I want that on the wall.
No, I don't want it. This is my wall.
We want it on the wall. Now,
let's get back to Ray.
Yeah, let's do this. Yeah, let's
we've got to obviously carry on.
The Bible says the heavens declare the glory of God, and the earth shows his handiwork.
Obviously, we've gone back a fair bit there, and that's because I just want to talk about how God's handiwork is always shown as beautiful. They always pick these lovely landscape shots. Why don't we zoom in a little bit and, what's going on in that landscape? Because, frankly, Earth has some horrible things going on.
Let's take this image and then make this image zoom in the way that he does.
All of creation screams that there's a creator. You can see the genius of God's creative hand through creation. The Bible says the heavens declare the glory of God, and the earth shows his handiwork.
Now, yeah, it's always fascinating. I think that the argument from beauty only works if your eyes are closed.
Or you're very far away.
Yeah, because the thing is that you see, like even the image that he was just showing of this beautiful landscape, and it is beautiful, right? We've evolved to think it's beautiful because it tends to be a location that has food and resources.
Oh, yeah, water.
Yep.
Being this key.
But the thing is that as soon as you zoom in and you start looking at what's going on there, there's fish being annihilated by parasites. There's this entire infrastructure of suffering that would embarrass the most ambitious psychopath, right? It really would. And to think that that's a product of God, that's what God wanted. It's okay, it looks beautiful from the outside, but when you go in and you actually start looking at the details, species whose entire reproductive system is predicated on being inside mammals. We said this about the guinea worm and whatnot.
There's one, it's in a fish, it eats its tongue and then takes its place.
Yeah.
What is that?
This is it. The naturalist can look at that and go,
it's perfectly fine.
It's really awful, but it's what you would expect to see. What you would expect to see, like the gravity thing, what you would expect to see. Would you expect to see a parasite take over the fish of a tongue if there was an all-powerful... Tongue of a fish, yes. If it was an all-powerful, all-loving God? I'm not so sure about that.
Certainly not the all-loving part. No. But anyway...
But to have faith in God means to trust in his integrity, to believe and trust in his exceeding great and precious promises that are in the Bible.
I guess we're done with all the intellectual reasons.
Yes, he's put intellectual reasons on the table and he's now moving to faith.
Yeah, and the intellectual reasons, just to be clear, was because we can see nature exists, we can intellectually believe in God.
You can see the creator in the creation. Yes.
That was it. That was all we had as intellectual evidence, essentially.
That's it. But now he's moving and he's giving us his definition of faith. Okay, fair enough. But not fair enough, because his definition of faith is very peculiar.
It was trust in promises in the Bible.
Okay, well...
Which narrows faith down to exclusively Christians.
Yeah, it means trust in the promises of the Bible regardless of whether or not there's sufficient reason to believe in it. And also, where it's specifically in reference to the Bible, let's be charitable, right? And say, okay, it's not just to the Bible. Otherwise, his definition of faith only relates to the Bible. Surely.
And which Bible is another matter as well.
And which Bible, yeah, precisely. And on which interpretation of those promises.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's just say that he's saying, for now, I think we're still manning him. He's saying that faith is trust in promises.
Which is a odd description that I've not heard before, but we'll roll with it.
We'll roll with it, but it's also, I don't know about you, but when I trust someone's promise, I do so for intellectual reasons.
I usually... when we set the plans for today, I trusted that you were going to show up.
Yeah.
My reasonings being you wanted to make this video.
Yes. Which is intellectual. See, this the conflation
You're
thing.
already at a problem, but...
All right, let's go on.
There are plenty of things in which we trust. We trust pilots, we trust taxi drivers, we trust dentists with our teeth, surgeons to operate on us. Listen to this very famous Bible verse, Hebrews 11, chapter 6.
No, we got to pause him again because he's about to go on again.
And just skipping by how terrible the editing is once again. Ray, you haven't said anything there. You've just said we trust in things.
Yeah.
That's all you've done is you're moving on to your next point. As such, what I'm assuming is going to be a point anyway. And all you've said is, we trust in dentists, we trust in pilots, and we trust in God.
And what gets me is the examples that he used, right? So, you're an aircraft technician, so why do you trust pilots?
Well, having worked on aircraft, they're bloody complicated.
Yeah.
I might, at a stretch, be able to start one. I certainly couldn't bloody fly one.
Yeah.
So I trust that a pilot who works for an airline has been through the adequate training in order to, get it off the ground and hopefully back down again.
Yeah. So empirical evidence, intellectual reason.
Yeah.
So raise
But
examples of trust.
Even without being a technician, most people know these things are hard to fly. They require years of training.
Yeah, totally. If you said to me, do I think that he's going? Why do I trust a pilot? It's for the reasons that you're saying, just with less knowledge, like everything in that sector.
So it's not just because he's called pilot.
No, it's not just because he's called pilot, and I don't promise him because he just says, "Listen, mate, I'll be able to get you to the other way." No,
No.
it's for intellectual reasons. So raise examples of trust.
I'm also here as well. I want to give you another thing.
Yeah.
We have examples of pilots existing. We have examples of people who
That
become
helps.
pilots.
That helps.
We don't have examples of a god. So we
No,
trust
that
in
helps.
things that we know exist.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously we don't know a god exists. So how do we then trust that?
Yeah, that's true.
That's
true.
another
Yeah, that's
aspect
fair.
to it.
But the main point here is that his examples of trust come down to intellectual reasons.
Yeah. It's not how he defined it, but it's the examples he's given.
Yes.
And obviously his definition of belief was with intellectual reason.
So faith means trust, and trust means belief, which is intellectual.
Yes, but they are different.
But they're different.
Listen to this very famous Bible verse, Hebrews 11, chapter 6. But without faith, it's impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is.
All right, so he's moving on again, but no, we're going to pause him and his gish gallop, and we're going to deal with his claim.
Well,
I need a drink.
I don't know if this is even a claim at this point. I don't actually know if you can call it a claim. All he's done is just bring up Hebrews on screen.
Yes.
And read it out.
And he thinks it's relevant to his own definition, but that begins with a but.
Yeah, so that begins with a but. So, but without faith, it is impossible to please him. So, I imagine it's probably best that we look up why there's a but and what the start of this chapter actually says.
Yeah, let's bring up Hebrews 11. All right, so top of Hebrews 11, it says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen."
Which I would read as things that you want to have, but you don't necessarily have evidence for.
Yes.
I think that's a interpretation and relates to my definition I gave at the start of the video.
Exactly. It also relates, because I've had this verse quoted at me a few times, that is what they mean by it.
Yeah.
They really get, and like this whole, Hebrews 11 is quite clear on this as well. The definition that they give for this is along those lines.
Yeah. But belief without needing to see the evidence.
That's it.
So let's then take what this verse that he's put on screen actually says. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. So that is, if you want to make God happy, don't look for reasons to believe. Close your ears to challenges. Learning is bad.
Yeah, that's just intellectual suicide. But to be fair, that's in the Bible. That's not Ray's fault.
No, that's not Ray's fault. That is in the Bible. So, yeah, if you want to make God happy, don't learn things.
Hold on. So, but without faith, it is impossible to please him. But what about those Christians that think that they've got rational reason to believe in God?
Then they've made him unhappy.
Then they've made God unhappy.
Yeah.
Great. But it does say, he is the rewarder of those who diligently seek him.
Right. So if you look for reasons to believe, you will be rewarded.
Okay. What? Okay.
So hang on. Well, the best case scenario for a person then depends on what you want. Do you just want to make God happy and get nothing out of it?
Yeah.
In which case, just believe for the hell of it. But if you want something, don't worry about pissing God off. Look for him. Because
well done,
you'll be rewarded, but you will have annoyed him.
Wait, that means I'm going to heaven and Ray's going to hell.
Yes.
Fair.
Because you've obviously
looking.
Yeah, you're looking.
So I'm going to get the diligent reward.
I think we've just read the Bible better than Ray probably did.
Oh,
so
this is
we've
great.
tried harder.
Yeah, thanks. This is great. Wow.
That's the intellectual belief in the existence of God. Only a fool would deny the existence of God, and that's what the Bible says.
No, you've just said faith is the non-intellectual belief.
Yeah.
So, and that quote there, by the way, if you look for God, you're making him unhappy. Well, that would surely be the anti-intellectual belief in God.
Yes. You see, he's just conflating he's not saying anything.
Well, no, he is. He's just confusing the words. He's
saying everything.
he said they're different.
Yeah.
But now he's just used, because he was talking about faith, and now he's just said faith is the intellectual belief.
Yeah, and
which he said earlier wasn't.
He began by saying you've got belief, which is intellectual.
Yeah.
And then you've got faith, which is trust.
Which is
Trust is belief, and belief is intelligence.
Yeah.
But look at the audience, man.
But what he's just said as well,
Yeah.
not only contradicts what he said earlier in the video, it contradicts the start of Hebrews, or start of Hebrews 11.
Yeah.
Because that said...
Yes, yeah. No, I'll get it up for you. So Hebrews 11, at the very top, it says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen."
Yeah, so when you're looking for intellectual reasons to believe, you're contradicting that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's misusing the Bible.
He's misusing the Bible.
Genius.
That's the intellectual belief in the existence of God. Only a fool would deny the existence of God, and that's what the Bible says.
Yes, of course it says that.
Of course it does. This is something that you find in all cults.
It's a religion.
It's a religion. They say, yeah.
Basically, anyone who doesn't believe what you believe is an idiot.
Yep. And if someone doesn't believe what you believe...
It's not just religion, it's also politics.
You see this in ideologies. If people don't believe in the same set of propositions that you do, then they're bad people, they're evil people, they are fools.
It's just othering. That's all it is.
It's just the othering. It's just so tribal. Would you expect this tribal nonsense from an all-powerful, all-loving God? Because I wouldn't. That would be one of the predictions that I would think you wouldn't see, which is one of the reasons that I think that if there is a God, and you can get there with Kalam-type arguments and whatnot, it definitely isn't the God of Abraham.
No. Well, I certainly would wonder if Ray would accept being called a fool because he doesn't believe in Allah.
Yes. I'd assume he'd have to.
The Quran says it, I'm sure. I don't know if it does. I haven't read it. I don't care.
Almost certainly. And what he would do is he'd probably look at it and go, no, they actually have the right God. It's the God of Abraham. But they just bastardized the text. They just added their own thing. And it's like, this coming from Christians
who have frequently added their own thing.
Who took the Jews' work and did exactly the same. All right, we're fools. Yeah. We're fools. Game over. He's beat us there, mate. Right,
we're out.
Done. Let's just go have a drink. I've had enough now.
Moving on.
But listen to the second part of that verse. And that is the rewarder of those who diligently seek him. To please him, we must believe that he is and trust that he is the rewarder of those who diligently seek him.
Well, I can't... God, you've got... You've got to believe intellectually, but with faith, which is not with the intellectually. So, confusion there. I really don't understand what you're saying anymore, Ray. And then once you believe intellectually, trust intellectually that he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him.
Ray has mastered the Bible. Because...
What, just use words however you feel like?
How many ways could you interpret Ray after this minute and a half of him talking? Because that's what the Bible has. It has this multiplicity of interpretations. All of them is hard to tell which is right on certain topics. He's really read his book. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to practice what's in that book.
But I would really want to question, is God a rewarder of those who diligently seek him, even if they haven't come to belief?
True. I mean,
because it doesn't say that you have to believe to be rewarded. It just says you have to diligently seek.
So there will be ways that they will define the diligently seeking as to be like seeking with faith, which doesn't make sense, I agree, but there's ways that they can do it. And there's other ways that you can read this, like Bible reading classes. They're going to find a way to read whatever they want. But yeah, it's an interesting tree to bark up, right? Because all the jokes aside, I do genuinely spend a hell of a lot of time reading. I've read the Bible, I've read the Quran, I've spent all this time investigating the best arguments for them, from, like the teleological arguments with Paley, the argument from probability, fine-tuning, things like this, moral arguments, the Kalam and its most recent literature. Like, I'm genuinely seeking, and genuinely, I would accept, if there's a God, I'd be happy to accept that. But there's just, I don't see it.
That's obviously on the intellectual side of it. We're going on the emotional side of it, wanting to emotionally seek a God.
Yes,
there's been times in my life where I've done that
on
account of especially when I was younger, I lost family members and stuff.
Yeah,
and I never found a God.
I
did find nature being an absolute bitch.
Yes,
but I never found a God. So, do I still get rewarded for seeking with my heart, but not finding.
They may define it as that because seeking with your heart would be closer to their faith definition that they would run with.
But that's my point. But I still haven't found faith.
No.
I still haven't found any belief.
No, which means you haven't pleased him.
Yeah.
But it does mean that you've also you're going to get rewarded. So.
But that's my question. It's like, even though I've done it through, rather than looking for reasons, rather than looking for intellectual, I've done it from the heart. I still haven't come to the conclusion they want. Do I?
Well,
Where does that work?
Yeah. No, I will say this. I've never met a Christian that doesn't think that he's going to heaven. So I think it depends on who you ask. If you find an intellectual Christian, then they're going to tell you that it's seeking intellectually. If you find one that's like Ray and seemingly allergic to intelligence, like honestly,
Right. Well, let's see, because I really want to know what else he has to say on this.
So there is the believe intellectually and trust in his integrity.
Yeah, but you told us just a moment ago that trust is intellectual.
Yeah. Belief, which is intelligence, and faith, which is intelligence.
Ray, I don't know what you're saying. You haven't really given us any separation between these two.
Genuinely, by saying everything, he's saying nothing.
Yeah.
That is like...
Just continue.
Yeah.
Faith is the oxygen by which we live as Christians. Let me share something very personal with you. Many years ago, when those nasal strips became very popular, they'd sit across the top of the nose, they'd open the airways.
Why?
Why?
If you put pig on screen.
Oh, for crying out loud. Right, we'll go back again. This works really well for the Gish Gallop. If you make someone laugh, they really can't follow what you're saying.
Yeah, we've got to go back because I don't know your point anymore because I've just started laughing at your video.
I got to say, it's just... Yes, let's do this.
Let me share something very personal with you. Many years ago, when those nasal strips became very popular, they'd sit across the top of the nose, they'd open the airways about 40%. So a lot of celebrity sporting stars wore them when they were playing and they became very popular. So myself and many of my friends would use them because they'd help them sleep well at night. But I found something that was low cost and you could use it again and again. It was a small plastic device that did exactly the same thing. But sometime last year, something very strange began to happen. For about 2 weeks, I struggled at night to breathe. What I'd done 2 weeks earlier is waved it over the soap before I washed it. I'd never done that before. It had hardened and blocked that little nasal thing. My pain was self-inflicted. And there is something that will deprive you of your oxygen as a Christian. It is self-inflicted, it's very subtle, and it can be fatal. It's something that I call analytic perfectionism.
Bloody Nora, we had a minute long of one of the most laborious analogies I have ever heard, only to get to analytic perfectionism, which I'm assuming he means critical thinking.
Yeah, thinking. Like, it's poisonous to Christians, you know.
But what did we have there?
The first minute and a half, right, his BPS was off the chart.
Yeah.
Bullshit per second, okay? The next minute... It's just been like an old, like just a story. He could have said this. He could have went, listen, some of the things that you suffer in life are self-inflicted. But instead, he gave us a minute
of
him smothering his thing with soap.
Hang on, no, I want to make sure we've got the analogy nailed down.
Yeah.
So there's a thing that athletes use to help their breathing, and some people like to use that to help them sleep.
Yes.
But he didn't buy that thing. He bought a different thing. That did help him sleep for a little while until he cleaned it with soap, and then it didn't help him sleep anymore. And this is analogous to overanalyzing things.
This is overanalyzing. Wait. Does he mean overanalyzing as in like just having sufficient reason for your beliefs, or does he mean like genuinely overanalyzing?
Well, I suppose we're going to get to that in a second.
Yeah, let's hear him. Wow.
What a poor analogy.
Let me read to you from Proverbs 3, verse 5.
I don't like that quote.
Yeah, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. Be ignorant. Be stupid.
That's quite insulting.
Yeah, it is insulting. I know plenty of really smart Christians. Like that's ridiculous.
Well,
but it's in the Bible.
Just believe, don't try to learn.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
That is straight up what that says.
And lean not to your own understanding. Well... Here's an analogy for you, Ray. I'm sure I'll do better than you. the architects of old, all our sort of medieval architects that have built, those churches and those amazing cathedrals, they wouldn't have been able to do that without understanding. They needed some rudimentary knowledge of physics, how stones and the arches can form to support the weight above them. If they didn't have that understanding, the churches, the cathedrals would collapse. But surely they should have just trusted that God would have made them work.
Yeah, no, I like that. So what you're saying is that you've got this irony of them using their intellect to build these great cathedrals to go in and preach about not having intellect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Use knowledge to tell people not to use their knowledge.
Yes. Oh, I hate to see what Ray's going to be doing with this quote. Let's go. Let's do this.
Go on.
Let's see this catastrophe.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart. There's what to do. And then it says that warning, and lean not to your own understanding. And saying, don't try and figure things out. Just trust the Lord like a little child trusts their father.
Holy shit! He just said that.
Yeah,
Don't think. Be like a little child.
I trusted my father for intellectual reasons, not for faith.
I don't think. Obviously, I was worried earlier that we'd been uncharitable towards him because we've very much been hammering on this. Oh, just be stupid, sort of thing. But now he's literally just said that
word for word. We're going to make you listen to that again.
Yeah,
that was. We were having much pain, and you will have some as well.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart. There's what to do. And then it says that warning, and lean not to your own understanding. And saying, don't try and figure things out. Just trust the Lord like a little child trusts their father.
Wow.
Just wow.
I'm not sure what else could be said on that. He's just told his audience, be stupid. I have never before seen anyone actively encourage their audience to be thick.
Yeah.
Ray has just done it.
Oh, no, I am genuinely a bit lost for words. I mean, I have seen this type of Christianity where, it's so toxic. Like, and also, I can't get my head around the fact that he's just used all these words interchangeably. He's equivocated multiple times. And again, the reason I trusted my father while he was alive to throw me around until I was around 12, then he couldn't do it, is for the same reason I trust air pilots. I've got reasonable expectation based on sufficient reason and evidence. It's got nothing to do with believing for no reason whatsoever. In fact, whenever I've done that in my life, I've been kicked in the teeth. It's a bad thing to do. This is exactly what you would expect to see from someone that does not have the truth. It is exactly cult-like.
It's infantilizing.
Yeah.
Literally so.
Yeah.
Be a child.
Be a child.
I can't think of anything positive that encourages someone not to be a grown-up, not to think about things, not to learn.
Don't even question it. Now that's the antithesis of what the world thinks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Of course, it doesn't work that way.
It's the antithesis of what he thinks when it comes to any other domain of discourse.
Well, yeah, the very foundation of the world we have today comes from attempting to understand it.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Nothing else to say, just like, wow.
Years ago, I was invited to Washington, D.C. by a group of atheists. They wanted to interview me for an hour to find out what made me tick. It was kind of like a psychologist's couch. At the beginning of the interview, they grabbed this verse and put it up as a warning to other atheists. They didn't see that as a positive. They saw it as a very negative thing, not to lean to your own understanding. They were saying this is a very dangerous thing to do.
It is.
Yeah.
It is
Well,
genuinely.
Ray, what you are suggesting people do is the death of critical thinking. It's the end of it.
And he's been quoting the Bible at us, which means he's learnt to read the Bible. I mean, like, he's contradicting himself.
You're not allowed to do that.
That's intellectual. That's not faith. You should have faith in the people that can read Latin, which you can't. So what he wants us to do is to go back to a time before Alfred the Great, where most people couldn't read the Bible. You could only read the Bible if you spoke Latin, and those that spoke Latin or were taught Latin were only those who sufficiently was jerking off the church.
Yeah, but even then, they learned Latin, so they shouldn't be allowed to.
That's it. They were contradicting
It's
themselves.
contradicting themselves.
They are not pleasing God, but they will go to heaven.
But right, let's go even more basic. Let's go even further back in time to the point that man had the ideas to come up with tools. Breaking a coconut open with a rock requires understanding that the rock is harder than the coconut.
Should have had faith, mate.
Ray, you're not allowed to break open that coconut because you have to have faith that God would do it for you.
You should have had promise in the coconut opening itself for you. And, like you had the promise of your father. Like, it's just...
As you can see, you can't do anything. You cannot function as a human being without any understanding.
Which is why he only wants to apply this to his faith.
Yeah.
Everything else, question. You must not question his faith.
Yes.
Everything else, it's important to be able to investigate it. But not his God.
We call this special pleading.
Yes, absolutely.
I had a very dear friend who suffered from the disease of analytic perfectionism. He would analyze everything. If I had have said to him, how do you know your mother is really your mother? He would have gone on a 2-month study of the thing.
And I'd have applauded him for actually considering how to adequately answer that question.
Yes. Also, the disease
of critical thinking.
The disease of being skeptical. The disease of actually questioning those in power. I mean...
But if someone has a question for you that you don't have an immediate answer for, it's perfectly fine to go away and go, right, well, why do I think this? Why do I trust this?
Yep.
Let's have a look. And if it takes you 2 months to do that, fine. At least you've thought about it.
Yeah, you thought about it, and, the other thing is that when you do start thinking in this way, as someone that has this disease of critical thinking, you end up becoming satisfied with not actually knowing. Because you kind of realise, with like problem with induction and things like this, you realise that you can't actually know anything with certainty. And then all you can have is levels of credence, depending on how much the claim is forcing you to buy into an ontology. So, for instance, if someone wanted me to believe that the Earth was flat, then I'm going to require a lot of evidence to be able to get there, right? Because it's quite the thing to believe in this day and age. Yeah. Whereas if I needed to, or I wanted to ask whether or not my mother is my mother, well, there's only a certain level that you can get to where you'd be happy. My mum tells me that she's my mother. Okay, does that prove it? No. My dad says so. Does that prove it? No. Got a reasonable expectation to trust my dad, but no, it doesn't. But
this is where he's saying trust comes into it. You don't need to prove it.
Yes, and this is it, and it's like fine, but this is where he's using trust so broadly. Trust means here, right? Which is where we're using faith. But when you ask
why do you trust,
yeah,
you're now looking for a reason.
Yeah, but the other thing is that he's defining trust, faith, which he's equivocating, right? He's defining it as just not being 100% certain. In this case, everyone has faith in everything because you can't be 100% certain with everything. And what they tend to do is they go, look, you have faith that your mother is your mother.
Yeah.
I have faith that God exists. No, I have really good reason to believe that my mother is my mother. Lots of independent, verifiable sources, right?
They're pretending that there's no sort of big gap between those two things.
Yeah, they're like, you're doing it, I'm doing it, we're equal. No.
One simple thing that you can start with for why I trust that my mother is my mother is I can point to her and show her that she's there.
Yeah,
I can't do that so easily with God.
And the other thing is you'll see like the genetic similarities, won't you?
Yeah. Being bald runs quite a lot in my family.
Widow's peak, just like my dad. Skin colour's the same.
Skin colour, eye colour.
Yeah, the fact that I couldn't grow a beard. I can now. Okay. Until I hit 30. Yeah.
You just stole some of mine, which it's all stuff.
It's very true. This is why we're friends.
I mean, how do you know your mother is your mother? She could have picked you up at a hospital. How do you really know? And it really comes down to you do believe what they've told you. I raised you as my son. You were born at such and such a hospital. This is your mother. This is your father. It comes back to simple childlike trust.
You can't know for certain, therefore you have faith.
But it's not just trust. No. Like you were saying, there's reasons behind it.
Every single time I'm messing up with this thing. You carry on, my friend.
To be honest, you've covered it. And so have I, in a way. If someone asks you a question as to why do you trust something, thinking of reasons to that question isn't overanalyzing.
No.
That's all I want to say on that, I think.
Well, there's another thing, actually. You make me think of this, and that is that there's a context to be considered. Okay? So if you wanted me to believe that my mother isn't my mother, or that she is my mother, and of course we're using the biological sense of mother here rather than, the person who's paternal and has looked after you. But if you want to stress on that horn, then finding out that my mother is not my mother is going to have some corrosion on my worldview. It's going to change the way that my worldview is, but not enormously. Okay, it's certainly not going to get me to start buying into supernatural things and things like that. Okay, it's a natural thing. It can happen. Fair enough. Whereas if you wanted to convince me that God exists, you switch my entire worldview, everything that I understand. So obviously, it's a much taller order to be able to do.
Which is why it's so hard to convince people, whether they're religious or non-religious, of the other side being true. Because it requires a total switch in your mindset.
Yeah, like believing that the Earth is flat. That would require quite the evidence, because it would be such a change in the way in which I see the world. But yeah.
Carry on.
Even a DNA test comes back to my faith in its results. Do I trust it?
Yeah, see, he's just saying everything in life is based on trust because we don't know anything for certain. That's all he's saying.
Yeah, there's not much really else to be said there. But the genetic thing did get me thinking, right? So when I was young, my mother was an alcoholic, and she said to me that my dad isn't my dad, right? So I ended up...
what a thing to say to a child.
My mum did some really nasty things, right? But what she said to me... Yeah, she said that, and my dad said to me, okay, Steve, you know what? We'll get a genetic test, okay? Because obviously, it's causing you distress. As a young kid, right? And I was worried about it. And I hadn't really thought about what it is to be a father. It's got nothing to do with biology. It has got everything to do with whether or not they look after you. That's it. So... unless you're going to define father as necessary, biological, fine, whatever. But I can't help it. It's the semantic warrior in me. Okay, but what happened is he said to me, do you want to do the test? There's a lot of money at the time. And I said, it was just at the time we were about to do it, because I said yes at first. And then I said no, because I had thought about it enough to realise it doesn't matter. Genuinely doesn't matter at all. But no, that just reminded me, because you brought up the DNA test thing. But if the DNA test came back and it said that he is my father... would that have been 100% truth, or would I still have had to have had faith? With this really broad definition of faith, of course I would still have to have faith, because it's so
faith
broad.
that the results are true.
Faith that the results are true. Faith that I'm being told the truth by these people. Like
when you're at this point, the term faith and trust here, they're just basically meaningless.
Yeah, exactly.
What's it? Incredibles. When everyone's super, no one is.
Bingo.
When everything's faith, nothing
when
is.
you say everything, you say nothing.
So if your conversion to Christ was merely intellectual, all it will take is an intellectual atheist or a skeptic to talk you out of it.
Intellectual atheists do this. We point and shout at the screen angrily. Ray, what are you doing, man? This is awful. Well, this is othering again, isn't it? It's you're betraying your opponent.
Yeah, it's like you want to present your opposition in a respectful way. Like apparently being intellectual is a bad thing now.
Yeah,
and it's
such so that he has to portray it with an angry
person pointing at the screen, being cantankerous. It's like, okay, we're not only are we fools, we're angry and we're intelligent. Intelligence is a bad thing here. Like that's what's being thrown on. Because we suffer from the disease of critical thinking.
The disease of critical thinking. But outside of just mocking what he's done in the presentation aspect there, let's actually go through with what he said, which boils down to don't have reasons for your belief, because if you do, someone might be able to counter those reasons and convince you otherwise.
Yeah.
Ray, this is one of the most intellectually dishonest things I have ever seen.
Yeah,
you've said
utterly intellectually bankrupt.
Yeah, you've just said don't give anyone anything to challenge you with.
Yeah, it's like what Sam Harris was saying, that if you don't have What reason can you present to somebody who doesn't value reason? What logic can you present to somebody who doesn't value logic? Nothing. If you met a flat earther and you said, why is it that you believe that the earth is flat? And their response to you was, I don't have any beliefs. I don't have any reasons. Because if I did, then you'd be able to challenge me. Like, what kind of respect would that person get? But no, it's done in the context of religion, and so this is perfectly fine. And even like those that are intellectual Christians, they don't call this stuff out.
No. I mean, the worst thing that you get from this, though, is if someone says, well, I believe in God, and you say to them why, they can't give you an answer.
Mm-hmm.
They just go, well, I just do.
Yeah.
And if you're at the point of just going, well, I just do, as an answer to any question, why do you believe in anything at that point? You've got nothing.
Imagine it from an atheist perspective as well. It's like, you don't believe in God? No. What's your reasons for that? Don't have any.
I just don't have any.
Don't have any. Well, okay, you got any logic for it? No. No. I've got faith. just pure faith. And I that's it. Like, there is not anything else to say other than just...
Ray's ideal Christian is someone who's brain dead on a hospital bed.
Yeah.
Because they can't think about anything.
Yep. That's it. They're going to please God.
They're going to please God by being brain dead.
But if you came to Christ because you trusted the promises of God and the power of God transformed you and made you a new creature in Christ so that you love that which you once hated and hate that which you now love, then no one will shake your faith.
Sorry. The edits. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So, if you come to God without thinking, no one can challenge you because you have no reasons to be challenged.
Yeah,
he's just reiterating it. He's just repeating himself. He's not he's not saying a lot, and what he's obviously repeating is awful.
Yeah.
Question everything but the shape of the earth. Question.
Yep.
This is just painful. Like it.
Does that mean that he's meant to question the slavery in the Bible, or just accept it?
Well, obviously, a lot of Christians try to rationalise it. They say slavery in the Bible is not the slavery that we saw in the North Atlantic slave trade.
Yeah, they ignore about 5 or 6 different references to slavery and focus on just 2 to get their interpretation.
Yeah, so they're trying to interpret it, but as soon as you try to interpret it, as soon as you try to rationalise, you're making God angry.
Yeah, you're not going to please God.
Just accept slavery is fine.
Yeah. I mean, if
That's
you
what the Bible
if you
says.
take a straight read of the Bible, it definitely endorses slavery.
Yeah.
You have to really bend over backwards to say that it doesn't.
Listen to 1 Peter. Jesus Christ, whom having not seen you love, though now you do not see him, yet believing, you rejoice with joy inexpressible and full of glory, receiving the end of your faith, the salvation of your souls.
I just had like 2 minutes of him telling you that believing without thinking makes you and God happy.
Yeah, he's just repeating the same thing, really. And well, we've said our piece.
It's just more of ignorance is bliss.
He's just taking
That's
another quote from the Bible to try and emphasize what he thinks is the correct interpretation.
This is tiring.
Yep.
Let's get on with it.
Hear what Scripture says? Yet believing you rejoice. If you've got no faith in the promise of God, you'll have no joy. Remember, trust is the oxygen by which the Christian lives. Listen to Scripture's warning. This is from the Amplified Bible. Take care, brothers and sisters, that there not be in any one of you a wicked, unbelieving heart which refuses to trust and rely on the Lord, a heart that turns away from the living God.
All right, I'll Google it. I'll bite.
Let's check it out because he's changed his version of the Bible. I mean, I don't know what he was using before, but it wasn't the Amplified. It definitely wasn't the Amplified.
It's not. No, it's not. What did he say? 3:1. Ray.
You've misquoted the Bible.
It's 3:12.
It's Hebrews 3:12.
3:12.
But he's
Ray's got it wrong. If he had used some intelligence, then he wouldn't have got it. Maybe he just picked the number with faith. Okay, Ray can't quote the Bible. Fair enough.
He's misquoted the Bible, but he's clearly picked the Amplified version to try and cram in his definition of trust.
Yeah, I'm going to look up King James Version.
Steve, what was his definition of trust again?
Oh, faith is trust, trust is belief, and belief is intellectual.
Right, and they are different.
But they're different.
Cool. Right, just so we all remember.
Right, King James Version. Take heed, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God. Now that's quite a bit different.
All that's saying is just about not believing is wicked, essentially.
Yeah.
That's all that says.
That's all it's saying.
But what's he using? The Amplified. The Amplified is inserting his trust into the... Yeah, but he said trust and belief are different, and he's now inserting trust into belief.
He's used the Amplified because they've used the word trust with belief, whereas actually the original... Well, the King James version, they're just basically bashing unbelievers again. That's it. It's just Bible bashing. It's a Bible bashing verse where they call unbelief evil because it is what it is. But he's chosen the Amplified just so that because it uses the word trust in brackets.
Yeah, so but again, it's conflating the trust and belief again. Yeah. So he's screwing up.
He starts off saying belief and faith are different, and then everything afterwards, he's just fused them together. And no one in his comment section seems to give a crap.
Right, continue. I can't take much more of this. We are going to have to stop soon.
This is painful.
Unbelief, a lack of trust, is a quietly subtle sin. It kept Israel going round and round the wilderness. For 40 years they wouldn't trust the Lord. Zechariah was struck dumb because he wouldn't trust the Lord. And remember what Jesus said to those 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus. He said, "O fools and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken."
Sorry, I'm going to look this one up.
Are you still using the Amplified, Ray? I'm not sure.
That's 2 he's got wrong.
He's got it wrong again.
Hang on, yeah. He said it's Luke 24:26. It's not. It's Luke 24:25.
Ray.
I mean, bro. I mean, it's not the end of the world, I guess, but... No. You know, he really is showing that he's not using intelligence.
No, he's nailing that. He is consistent on that one thing.
Consistent at being...
So the Bible says, "O fools and slow of heart to believe all the prophets that have spoken."
It's just again a diss on like people that that aren't convinced.
What does the Bible say on fools that are slow of brain?
I find one of the most obvious. You know, at the beginning he brought up gravity. Yeah, and he was saying that you can use. He believes in God for the same reason he believes in gravity. One of the things I would expect from an all-loving, all-powerful God, or rephrase it this way, one of the things I would not expect is this stupidity on focusing on those who are unbelievers, who are not convinced. I think this is such an obvious sign that this is written by men in power, about power. It's so obviously not divinely inspired. Like, this is tripe. When it's just the other's bad, the other's bad, the other's bad.
We are fools not to believe what the scriptures say. May I pluck out my right eye before I deem God as being untrustworthy.
What's amazing here is we're fools not to believe, but in order to believe, we need to trust.
Yeah.
But you can only trust. You can only trust what you believe. So in order to believe, you need to trust that God is honest in his book, but in order to have trust in God, you need to believe that God is real.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I don't believe God is untrustworthy, and it's not because I believe in God, it's because I don't believe a God exists. Yeah. I don't believe he's trustworthy, I don't believe he's untrustworthy, I don't believe he's real. So how can I trust his word that the Bible is accurate? I can't.
Reese, look, do you trust Bigfoot? Okay.
Absolutely.
Or is it that you need to believe he exists before you can assign whether or not you trust him? Okay? Because if he doesn't exist, his promises aren't promises, right? But if you're not convinced of Bigfoot, then just recognise that all of the footprints scream Bigfoot. You can see Bigfoot in the footprints. We're making that a t-shirt. Yeah. I'm just saying. We're making it a t-shirt. That's good.
But this rhetoric only works on a certain type of person, and they need 2 things in place.
First, it's not a brain.
The first is belief in God.
Yeah.
And 2 is the willingness to throw away critical thinking.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Because
is the not a
the
brain
moment
part.
you think about the sentence he just said, you get my situation. You cannot trust that which you don't believe.
Yeah.
Just the thought of not trusting him makes me feel physically sick. In the same way, if I said to my wife, "Honey, I don't trust you," what an insult that would be to her integrity.
Okay. I trust in my girlfriend, and the reason I trust her is for intellectual reasons. I don't just trust her for no reason whatsoever. It is intellectual, okay? She has time and time again delivered on her promises. I mean, we've said all this, right? There's no point reiterating it. It's just, right now, he's just preaching at the choir, and it's worked, right? 140,000 views, and the comments are...
He's not... We're 6 minutes in, and he's managed to say about 2 things.
Yeah, 6 minutes in, he said... Yeah.
And the rest of it's just been repeated.
Yeah, all he said in 6 minutes, he's not said anything, right?
The 2 things are... belief is intellectual.
Yep.
Faith is trust, and trust is belief, which is intellectual when they're different.
Yep.
And then the other thing is don't think.
Yeah. That's all he said.
That's all he said.
Yeah, really, his title of the video is "Do This and Your Faith Will Crumble." Thinking.
If you think your faith will crumble, don't do it.
Don't do it. The evil atheists are coming.
Think of the fruit of unbelief. David sinned horribly, took another man's wife, and then had him killed because of unbelief. He didn't believe that God would hold him accountable. Same with Judas. Same with Adam. They didn't believe they'd be held accountable.
Ray, have you got proof of them being held accountable?
No, that would require intelligence. That would require reasoning. It will require
That's true.
investigation.
You just got to trust that
Just
they've been
trust it,
held
just
accountable.
That's what we want.
If the enemy can't get you from without, he'll get you from within. He will send a Trojan horse of doubting demons.
Trojan horse. Sorry, I've got to pause it here, right? Look,
It's fine.
he's got a Trojan horse to represent someone getting you to question things.
They're getting in the back of your brain.
They're in.
And they're going to make you evil.
They're making me question things, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm now an angry atheist.
Who whisper, has God said? Seeds of doubt will in time become cursed weeds that choke our faith. Unbelief is a tiny hole in a balloon that deflates our trust in God.
I love it. The almighty, all-powerful God can be defeated by the pinprick of just a little bit of critical thinking.
May you and I dash any thoughts of unbelief or lack of faith in the promises of God as quickly as we would dash an adulterous thought. Adultery is a blatant sin. Unbelief is a subtle soap in the nasal dilator.
It all makes sense now. This is why he did a video, a minute straight talking about that.
The inspiration for this video was he had that nasal dilator thing and he got some soap in it. That was the entire inspiration.
I've got the idea that he's like sat down at 4 a.m. and he can't sleep and his nose hurts and he goes, I'm going to turn this into a beautiful thing. I'm going to write a script where I tell people not to think, because if they did think, and if I did think, I would have figured out that I put bloody soap in the thing. Should have just had faith.
Hang on, how did he figure out that was soap in it was causing him the problem? Surely that's overanalyzing.
Yeah, he overanalyzed. In fact, the reason he can talk about it at all is because he overanalyzed.
God, Ray, stop it. You're hurting me.
Something else.
It's not so evident, but the consequences of its presence are frightening. Now watch this.
God, the very last thing he said there is the consequences of thinking are truly frightening.
True. You couldn't strawman this position as worse than what it is.
No.
I don't think that's... I don't know if I've ever seen that possible. You take someone's idea and you make it worse by showing that they're being unreasonable, illogical. When someone just says flat out, like, go for the most, no reason, no logic, because that's evil, that's the other.
As soon as you attempt to be charitable, you are still manning Ray Comfort.
Yeah, and you actually, this is rock bottom. You can't actually strawman that. Strawman his position.
Well, if I just said be dumb, that would actually just be his position.
You're just restating his. He said that. You can't. I mean, right. Crazy. Now let's see what he's doing there. One sec.
Okay.
Let's see what this next bit is.
Steve, can we just have a quick look at what this next bit is? Because I just can't deal any more of this waffling numpty. I've had enough.
All right. So we just watched the remaining part of the video, which is most of the video. And all Ray is doing is having a conversation with someone who is already Christian, and he's gaslighting that Christian to be a more, practicing Christian. We're not going to respond to this. It's ridiculous. It's not. I mean,
there's not a lot for us to respond to, and frankly, I don't want to subject you to the pain that I've just had to go through watching it.
It was painful.
But as you can see, I have no idea how long we've actually been here now. It feels like a long time. It's getting dark outside.
Yep.
And we've got through less than 7 minutes of his content.
That first minute was horrendous. It was so hard to figure out what he was saying.
Well, nothing.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything.
Didn't say anything. So,
I mean,
such as the Bigfoot stuff, all of the footprint. No, yeah, said nothing in 7 minutes, which is incredible. And it just shows how powerful that Gish Gallop technique or Torek trotting technique is. You just fire off all of these claims.
But I think Ray was even worse than a lot of like the Gish Galloping Torek trotting, because he either was saying a lot, but not actually, there was no substance to it.
Yes.
Or when he did say stuff, he just started repeating the same thing over and over again. So those last few minutes where I was getting really worn down, all he was doing was repeating, don't think about things. Don't think about things.
That's true.
Be a child. Be stupid. That was all he was saying for minute after minute.
Man. Yeah, because that's why like the first minute was really difficult, or minute or two. He was firing a lot of claims, whereas the last minute and a bit was just
like I said
repetition.
A few minutes ago. Like he has a whopping 2 positions in this video.
Yeah.
That faith and belief are different.
Yeah, faith and belief are different. That's one of the major things he said, right?
But faith is trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trust is belief.
Belief is intellectual, but faith is trust. And trust is belief.
Yeah,
and belief is intellectual. Unbelievable.
So that's his first major point.
Yes.
And then the latter part of the video was just purely encouraging people not to think, because thinking is poison to faith.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, his title of the video is the main takeaway, right? Do this and your faith will crumble. Think.
It's the only thing he described is actually doing.
Thinking is the enemy. And it's like, would you expect to see that in a world where there's an all-powerful, all-loving God? I do not think so. I think that's a complete reductio. All right, so that's been the second episode of LowFruit. We're back by popular demand, and I chose this video. It's the one that I found, and you're in pain.
You're not choosing anymore.
He doesn't want me to choose again, and I thought, look, let's just ask the audience who tend to watch this stuff more than me. Let us know the best ones that you know of, what you'd like to see us react to. What we do is
be nice. Please don't hurt me.
Hurt him, okay? What we will do is we will look at the most highly rated ones, and as in like more likes on them, and then we will go watch the first minute, and if we're just like, this is gold, then we'll run with it, which will be good. Remember, Christmas is coming up, so you can probably get some doozies.
Yeah, should be some good ones in there.
Yeah. I mean, other than that, where can they find you, Ruis?
So please come check me out over at Castles and Curiosities. I have been very, very slow in producing my videos up till now. I've just moved house, which you've been seeing the lovely decor of.
And then for me, well, you're on my channel, so I don't really need to plug myself.
All of creation screams that there's a creator. You can see the genius of God's creative hand through creation.